This is Jamie from Hero Master, and he's going to talk us through his game Hero Master. So, what have you got?
Cool, hello, I'm Jamie, as you say. Thanks for coming along and having a look at Hero Master, an epic game of epic fails. This is a game where you play a group of dysfunctional adventurers. You are the kind of last guys to be picked for every party, and essentially, to set the scene, a dragon has been flying overhead. You've been fairly oblivious to the whole thing, but kind of finally you kind of realise, and it's a bit too late, the dust is kind of settling as all the adventurers are kind of heading out. And unfortunately, you end up in the same band of heroes. That happens every time. They're useless, they get on each other's nerves, they're desperate to be the one who's going to slay the dragon at the end of things. So it's a competitive game set inside a party. So contrary to popular belief, not every party probably gets on, and I'm sure if you've played Dungeons & Dragons or any other kind of like role-play game, you will probably have experienced those parties. So yeah, without further ado, I can explain a little bit about the gameplay. Essentially, there's two kind of rounds to combat. You have a round where you kind of lay down your cards, a statement of intent, so you're kind of trying to attack monsters. And then the second round is where you resolve all those attacks. So during the first round is the key bit, this is sort of strategic bit, where you're kind of trying to lay cards down to scupper the attacks of other people. So, for example, and it's all kind of like the stereotypical kind of like roles of party kind of characters you might have. So, for example, you have the wizard, who is super pompous and intolerant of everyone else in the party, and kind of like can't understand why everyone's such fools. And he would maybe kind of like bungle your attack and cause you problems. And the same with the barbarian. This guy's so big, like he's never had any spatial awareness. He's just like bumping into everyone, knocking into them and stuff. So he might lay this attack down on someone else, sorry, this bungle down on someone else to scupper their attack too. But it's not only the bungles that cause problems. The wizard hasn't really heard of collateral damage, so when he throws a fireball, you might be standing right in the way of that, so he might cause some problems for you too. So anyway, it's kind of, as I say, a competitive game where kind of you're trying to get the edge over each other and fight kind of like all the different monsters in the locations, and you travel from location to location, and each one you would refresh your hand, so it's kind of a hand management sort of game. You don't want to just blow all your attacks and your cards on the first monster you see, but it might be a tactic. If you see a monster that looks particularly good, you might want to kind of give yourself the best chance of doing it. So, but bear in mind that other people are out there to kind of like to trip you up as well. So throughout the game, you're also kind of accruing treasure. So it's a little bit of a deck management game as well, or a deck building game, should I say? Which is kind of like there's two bonuses to building a deck. One of them is the fact that you kind of get exciting, more interesting, more versatile cards, but the other one is also that they get straight into your hand or onto your board as well, so you get to use them straight away. So if you're running out of cards and you get some treasure, all of a sudden you're back in the game again. So yeah, I don't know, Stan, if you've got any other kind of bits. I guess kind of the
critical fails.
The important bits are kind of the critical fails. So when you bungle someone, the attack is kind of crippled slightly in the fact that it might, in fact, there's a better one here. It reduces the attack kind of prospects of the card, so the stats on there will be reduced. But detriment to you as the bungler, you increase their critical fail. Now that might sound like a good thing. If you're kind of like increasing their critical fail chance, the threshold, because you're going to increase their chances of doing it, it sounds like it should be good for you, but in fact, these guys are used to failure. They are the epitome of failure, so they thrive on it. So if they critically fail, the chances are it's going to be, if you're leaning on them, being, for example, with a human, everyone plays human characters when they first start a game. It's the vanilla character, you do it. So these guys are boring. They're telling boring stories throughout the dungeon. No one really cares. Everyone's experienced it before. And these guys, if this card was laid on you, it increases your threshold of a critical fail to an 8. So rather than a Dungeons & Dragons environment, I don't know if you guys have played that before, but you'd roll a critical fail on a 1. It increases it to an 8, so much bigger chance of kind of like rolling critical fail. And when you do, you'd end up instantly drawing one of these cards. So although you fail the attack and it's bungled, for example, this one, agility, fragility, you would thrust your sword and end up splitting someone else's like purse open, and coins fly everywhere. So not so good. The other one might be wayward strike. So as you're kind of like trying to hit the monster and someone's just decided to shout something in your ear, you hit them instead. Silent but violent. As you overreach with an attack, a little squeak might come out of your behind. Abysmal charisma. I think we've probably all seen the meme on the internet of the kind of like critical fail as you're kind of like trying to attack an orc, and unfortunately you kind of caress him instead. So with this one, you know, he actually falls in love with you and gives you a piece of treasure instead. So you might have missed him, but romantically involved with him now. So yeah, it's kind of a game of calamity, and you're kind of trying to get through by the skin of your teeth. There is defeat, you know, you do get defeated, and that does adjust how the game's played. You kind of you do resurrect so that no one gets kicked out of the game, but it does make, you know, playing a little bit harder because your hand size is reduced. You can, when you heal back up to full health, your hand size, regardless of how far you've gone down, pings back up to full again. So there's ways of getting back in the game, and one of the big ways of getting back in the game, if you're really trailing, these guys, they're just going to whinge their way through the dungeon. If they're failing, they might complain they're not getting their fair share, so they're just going to take something. They might cheat their way through the dungeon. They might just constantly whinge through the dungeon, or they might just have a full-on meltdown. So those cards kind of get you back in the game. So they're like a bonus attack that you might get to kind of like to kind of keep you going, and it's kind of it's a catch-up system. We always want to kind of like to you know, encourage people to kind of like obviously do the best they can, but no one likes to sort of play in a game whereas there's a runaway winner. So we like to kind of keep people kind of involved. So that's why there's no death or long-term defeat. It's kind of like everyone's kind of in, but there's strategy to it, and I think that's the kind of important thing, is that although there's a real humorous side to the game, and the card art is very light and kind of fun, that once you get involved, there's strategy, and the strategy comes in stage one of the game when you're kind of laying your cards. The second one, you're rolling dice. Like, it's, you know, that's kind of the luck. Oh, I critically failed there. I rolled an 8 when this guy bungled me, but the monsters are attacking you too, and they've got some kind of like funny outcomes as well. So kind of like they'll be kind of like just knocking you out left, right, and centre, and what have you. And you might kind of like, the human, for example, one of their cards is forgettable. So they're so boring as a character and forgettable that the monster's even forgotten who it's attacking, and it's just attacking someone else instead. So despite the fact it's just hitting them in the back of the head, it's, you know, it's going up and attacking someone else. The rejuvenation potion, I mean, sort of like that's one of the things you can pick up throughout the game. Unfortunately, it's not for oral administration, so it does come with a tube and a funnel, and kind of like to give you, this is kind of a blown up version of one of the pieces of card art. But check out the Hero Master Epic Game of Epic Fails Facebook group, and you'll be able to read a bit more of the flavour text and get an idea of kind of what's going on. You know, but please go and visit the Hero Master and Epic Game of Epic Fails on Facebook, and you'll find out more about it, including the dates and stuff. And also there's a link there for the email list too, so you'll be able to sign up to that too.